What if an animal looked straight at you and said a real word? Not a bark, not a growl, an actual human word. You would think you were going crazy, but here's the thing. It has already happened, multiple times, with multiple animals, documented by real scientists. And when you find out which animals have actually spoken human words, and how close they came to having a real conversation, your entire understanding of the animal kingdom is going to shatter. Stay till the end, because the last part of this video will completely change how you think about the boundary between humans and animals. We have always believed that language is the one thing that separates us from every other creature on Earth. We talk, they grunt. We build sentences, they make noise. That is the story we have told ourselves for thousands of years. But scientists have been quietly running experiments, teaching animals, listening, recording, and what they have discovered is so strange and so unexpected that some of them still argue about what it actually means. So let us start at the beginning. Let us talk about the animals that came closest to actually talking back. Act 1. The parrot that asked a question. Let us start with the most famous case in the history of animal language research. His name was Alex. He was a gray parrot, and he was unlike anything scientists had ever seen. Dr. Irene Pepperberg spent years working with Alex, and what she discovered was not just cute parrot tricks. Alex understood questions about color, about shape, about size, about numbers. You could hold up two objects and ask him which one was bigger, and he would tell you, correctly. He knew around 100 words, not just sounds, words he actually used in the right context. But here's the part that stops everyone cold. One day, Alex asked a question about himself, an existential question, a question about his own existence. A parrot, a bird, looked at a mirror and asked something that suggested he was aware of himself as an individual. Scientists are still debating exactly what that moment meant, but nobody forgot it, and Alex was not alone. Another gray parrot named Nikisi knew over 900 words. 900. He could build sentences. He even understood grammatical tense, the difference between something happening now versus something that already happened. That is a concept that takes human children years to master. A third parrot named Apollo could answer questions about objects, colors, and materials. And he did something even wilder. He started asking questions about things he had never seen before. These were not robots repeating sounds. Something else was happening inside those small bird brains. Act 2. The apes who learned to sign. Now here is where things get even more interesting. Scientists tried to teach chimpanzees and orangutans to speak out loud, and it mostly failed. Their throats and mouths are simply not built the same way ours are. They cannot produce the full range of sounds that human speech requires. But then researchers tried something different, sign language, and suddenly the door opened. Chimpanzees turned out to be genuinely creative with signs, not just copying gestures, actually combining them in new ways to express new ideas. Like a deaf person fluently navigating a conversation. A chimpanzee named Vicky managed to say 4 spoken words: mama, papa, up, and cup. 4 words was the absolute limit of what her vocal anatomy could produce. But an orangutan named Tilda went further. Born in Borneo in 1965, Tilda learned to control her lips, tongue, and voice in a way no wild orangutan ever does. She could produce sounds that genuinely resembled human speech patterns. She did it specifically to get her keeper's attention during feeding time. She figured out that making human-like sounds got a faster response than making orangutan sounds. She was not just imitating, she was solving a problem. Then there was Rocky, an orangutan at the Indianapolis Zoo who became the very first ape ever recorded making speech-like sounds in what researchers called a conversational context. He was not performing, he was responding, back and forth, like a conversation. Act 3. The elephant, the whale, and the seal. And it was not just primates and birds. An elephant named Batir, living in Kazakhstan, reportedly developed a vocabulary of over 20 phrases. Recordings of him saying things like, "Batir is good," and "Batir is hungry," were broadcast on state radio in 1980. An elephant, describing itself, in words. In South Korea, an elephant named Kosik learned to imitate Korean words by pressing his trunk against his mouth to shape the sounds. Then there was NOC, a beluga whale held in a United States Navy program. NOC could mimic human speech well enough that Navy divers underwater actually heard what sounded like human voices and surfaced confused, looking for a person who was not there. A dolphin named Peter learned to produce several recognizable words, including the name of his trainer, Margaret. An orca named Wiki learned to say hello, goodbye, and the name of her trainer, Amy. And a harbor seal named Hoover became so well known for repeating common phrases he heard around his tank at the New England Aquarium that he appeared in Reader's Digest, The New Yorker, and on Good Morning America. A seal, on morning television, talking. So what does all of this actually mean? Here is what scientists keep coming back to. These animals are not just copying sounds randomly. The ones that come closest to language, the parrots, the apes, the elephants, the whales, they all share one thing in common. They are doing it to connect with humans. They are reaching across the biggest communication gap in the history of life on Earth and trying, in whatever limited way their bodies allow, to bridge it. Alex the parrot asked a question about himself because something in his mind wanted an answer. Tilda the orangutan shaped her voice like a human because she figured out it worked better. Nock the beluga whale mimicked human speech so convincingly that trained Navy divers could not tell the difference. None of these animals have grammar the way we do. None of them have full language. Scientists are very clear about that. But here is the thought that stays with you long after this video ends. If animals are reaching this hard toward human language, imagine what ancient humans must have noticed. Sitting around fires with dogs, watching parrots mimic their words, listening to whales in the ocean. They did not have science labs or recording equipment, but they had something we sometimes forget we have. They were paying attention. And maybe, just maybe, so were the animals.